So here we are, 2025. The world is asking, who's really more advanced, Singapore or Japan? And before you yell, of course, Japan, they invented karaoke and toilets that sing lullabies, hold your sushi rolls. Because while Tokyo is still bragging about the Shinkansen that hasn't changed since the Beatles were alive, Singapore built an entire city that looks like it was designed by Elon Musk's interior decorator. But hey, let's not rush. For the next few minutes, we'll compare these two Asian giants on everything that actually matters: technology, economy, lifestyle, education, and yes, how many people can say coffee without accidentally sounding like copy? Spoiler, it's not Japan. Stay tuned, because by the end of this, you'll either want to apply for Singaporean citizenship, or you'll be Googling how to cancel your overpriced Tokyo apartment lease without losing your 2 months deposit. When people think advanced Asia, Japan still pops into the global imagination. Robots bowing at airports, anime girls selling vacuum cleaners, and vending machines that can allegedly produce a girlfriend if you press the right button. But let's be real. Most of those robots are unplugged, collecting dust and the vending machines. 90% just spit out lukewarm Pocari sweat. Meanwhile, in Singapore, the city-state's so small you can walk across it before your bubble tea melts. Technology is less of a gimmick and more of a survival instinct. Need to pay for a taxi? Just tap your phone. Renting an apartment, digital contracts, government paperwork, one login and it's done. Contrast this with Japan, where opening a bank account requires 3 red stamps, your grandmother's blood type, and a fax machine from 1987. Japan is still trying to convince itself that fax machines are secure technology. No, they're not. They're just loud printers with trust issues. Singapore, on the other hand, treats the internet like oxygen, invisible, everywhere, and if it stops working for 30 seconds, society goes into cardiac arrest. Let's not forget infrastructure. Tokyo subway maps look like Jackson Pollock paintings, while Singapore's MRT runs like German punctuality dressed in tropical humidity. Japan may brag about the Shinkansen's speed, but Singapore doesn't need a bullet train. It just made the entire country into one giant efficient commute. Here's the kicker. Japan once exported futuristic dreams to the world: Sony Walkmans, Nintendo, Toyota hybrids. But in 2025, Singapore is exporting working systems. They don't show you dancing robots, they show you an airport where you clear immigration in 90 seconds flat. That's not sci-fi, that's competence. So if tech is the measuring stick, Japan is the neon nostalgia museum, while Singapore is the functional future. Japan loves to pretend it's still the miracle economy. You'll hear the same recycled lines. We have Toyota, Sony, Nintendo. Yes, Grandpa. And you also have Walkmans and cages. It's 2025 now, and Japan's economic miracle is basically a ghost story parents tell their kids to make them study harder. Let's start with wages. In Japan, the average worker is pulling in around $18,000 to $20,000 a year. That's right. The world's third largest economy pays like it's running a high school internship program. Meanwhile, Singapore's average salary is double, sometimes triple that, and you don't even need to age 20 years in the same cubicle just to qualify for a slightly bigger desk. Japanese companies still worship lifetime employment, but here's the joke. They don't actually offer it anymore. It's like Disneyland saying, yes, we have magic here, but then charging you $12,000 to ride a rusty Ferris wheel that broke down in 1995. Young Japanese graduates end up as irregular workers, bouncing between contracts, convenience stores, and Amazon warehouses. In Singapore, by contrast, even the gig economy looks organized. At least your Grab driver can afford bubble tea without applying for government subsidies. Then there's productivity. Japan's workers stay late every night, not because they're productive, but because they're terrified of leaving before their boss. Imagine wasting 3 extra hours a day just to perform unpaid cosplay of loyal employee. Singapore? People clock out on time, grab dinner, maybe even start a side hustle. Japan invented karoshi, death by overwork. Singapore invented fintech unicorns. Tell me which is more advanced. So when people say Japan is still rich, I laugh. Rich, maybe in nostalgia, maybe in anime figurines, but in actual wages, living standards, and future potential, Japan is basically running a retirement home while Singapore is running a business empire. Japanese education, the great myth. Ask any Japanese person and they'll tell you, we study English for 12 years. 12 years, really? And after all that, most can barely say, this is a pen. Let's be brutally honest. Japan's education system is like an expensive gym membership. People brag about signing up, but no one actually gets fit. In 2025, Japan is still teaching English with chalkboards, cassette tapes, and the energy of a funeral. Students memorize vocabulary lists the way monks chant prayers, mindlessly, without ever understanding. After 12 years, their mastery is around 2,000 words, just enough to order a Big Mac, but not enough to survive a job interview. Singaporean kids, meanwhile, are juggling English, Mandarin, Malay, and maybe even Tamil before breakfast. That's not an exaggeration. That's Tuesday. And it's not just languages. Japan's obsession with rote memorization means students become human photocopiers. Critical thinking, creativity, innovation, forget it. The system trains you to sit still, nod obediently, and regurgitate answers. That's why Japan produces legions of test-taking machines who can calculate the square root of 756, but can't hold a conversation with a tourist. Singapore, on the other hand, built its entire success on one principle: brains should actually be useful. Let's not ignore the punchline. Japan loves to parade its high IQ myth, waving around that 109 average IQ like it's an Olympic medal. But if IQ is so high, why does Singapore consistently crush Japan in PISA scores, global math rankings, and actual fluency in the world's working language? High IQ in Japan means you can pass an entrance exam. High IQ in Singapore means you can design a hedge fund before lunch. So while Japan is still stuck worshipping exam halls like sacred temples, Singapore is exporting actual talent, CEOs, and Nobel Prize winners. Japan, they're still printing English textbooks that say, this is Taro, he likes baseball. No wonder the country is stuck in 1995. Welcome to Japan, where everyday life feels like you're trapped in a 1980s office comedy that never ends. Need to register your address? Please bring 3 copies, 2 red stamps, your landlord's signature, and, oh yes, your personal fax machine. Because in 2025, Japan still treats the fax as the holy grail of communication. Meanwhile, Singapore is signing digital contracts with blockchain authentication while sipping bubble tea. Banking? Japan requires you to physically visit a branch, fill out forms in triplicate, and bow at least 5 times. Singapore? Tap your phone and it's done before you even finish complaining about inflation. Japanese bureaucracy is so slow it makes glaciers look fast. They're still filing forms in manila folders while Singapore's government is running on AI dashboards and data analytics. And then there's the population crisis. Japan is officially the world's retirement home. Every train carriage feels like a nursing ward on wheels. The average age, 49. That's not a joke. That's the future. Whole villages are vanishing, replaced not by youth but by wild boars roaming abandoned houses. Singapore, by contrast, is importing talent, attracting global elites, and keeping its demographic engine alive. Japan? They'd rather collapse than admit they need immigration. Daily conveniences? In Japan, you carry wads of cash like it's 1975. Good luck paying with your shiny credit card at a mom-and-pop restaurant. The owner will look at you like you tried to pay with seashells. Singaporeans haven't touched physical money in years. They wave their phone and it works. No drama, no excuses. And let's talk about efficiency. Japanese workers worship effort even when it produces nothing. Endless meetings, pointless reports, late-night overtime just for show. Singaporeans, they value results. You do the job, you go home. Japan invented the culture of staying late to look busy. Singapore invented the culture of staying rich to look smart. So while Japan's society creaks under the weight of outdated systems and aging citizens, Singapore's daily life feels like living in the future. Clean, fast, and efficient. Japan, it's basically a cosplay convention where the theme is, pretend it's still 1985. Japan likes to sell an image of the good life. Neon lights, Michelin star sushi, chic Harajuku fashion. But let's peel back the anime filter. The average Japanese lifestyle in 2025 looks less like Lost in Translation and more like Lost in a 12 square meter apartment with a broken rice cooker. Let's start with housing. Tokyo apartments are basically high-rise closets with a window that barely opens. A one-room mansion in real estate ads sounds glamorous until you realize it's literally one room. Your bed, your desk, your stove, and your washing machine, all fighting for oxygen in a space smaller than a Singaporean bathroom. Meanwhile, in Singapore, yes, housing is expensive, but at least your HDB flat comes with functioning space, modern design, and neighbours who aren't practicing the art of passive-aggressive garbage sorting. Now, wages. We already dragged Japan's salary trap earlier, but let's connect the dots. Tiny wages plus tiny apartments equals tiny lives. No wonder the Japanese convenience store has become the country's unofficial kitchen. People live off plastic bento boxes, soggy carriage, and 100 yen onigiri like it's fine dining. Singaporeans, they hit a hawker centre where a few bucks buys you laksa, satay, chicken rice, and flavour explosions that don't taste like reheated despair. And let's not forget fashion and consumer goods. In Japan, young workers spend entire paychecks on a designer handbag to hide the fact that they're eating cup noodles for dinner. In Singapore, people also splurge on luxury, but they can actually afford to keep the lights on afterward. Japan's lifestyle is all about survival under the illusion of style. Singapore's is about comfort with a side of ambition. Then there's mental health. In Tokyo, overworked office drones collapse into manga cafes or capsule hotels just to avoid going home to their shoebox apartments. In Singapore, people might complain about rent or stress, but at least their daily life doesn't resemble a survival reality show. So who's really advanced? Japan's lifestyle is a nostalgic fantasy that looks cool in Instagram reels but feels like poverty cosplay when you live it. Singapore's lifestyle? It's modern, efficient, and most importantly, actually livable. Ask any tourist what Japan is like, and they'll gush. Oh, it's so futuristic. Robots, anime, sushi trains, Shibuya crossing. Yes, the Instagram highlight reel looks dazzling, until you realize it's basically Photoshop for an entire country. Let's start with Tokyo's neon lights. Tourists see them and think, wow, Blade Runner. Locals see them and think, wow, another chain pachinko parlor where my uncle lost his paycheck. Those glowing signs aren't innovation. They're just electricity bills keeping alive a 1980s aesthetic. Singapore doesn't even bother with fake neon. Their skyline is real. Glass towers, smart gardens, and an airport that feels more like a sci-fi movie set than a tourist trap. And sushi? Yes, the Michelin Guide drools over Tokyo, but the average Japanese isn't eating omakase every night. They're wolfing down 7-Eleven sandwiches that look like crime scenes of mayonnaise. Tourists get the fantasy, wagyu beef and artfully plated sashimi. Locals get the reality, instant ramen at midnight after a 12-hour shift. In Singapore, you don't need to be rich to eat well. Hawker food is affordable, diverse, and actually fresh. Then there's the safety and politeness myth. Tourists rave about how clean and safe Japan is. Sure, until you notice the passive-aggressive rules everywhere. Don't eat here, don't stand there, don't talk on the train. Japan is safe, yes, but also suffocating, like living inside a never-ending school exam. Singapore, ironically, has the same safety, but without the cosplay of fake politeness. People just get things done. The biggest illusion? Tourists think Japan is advanced. They don't see the fax machines, the crumbling villages, the 47-year-old salarymen sleeping under their desks. They see anime and bullet trains, then go home bragging about the future. Meanwhile, Singaporeans quietly laugh because their real daily life already is the future. So Japan's international image is a hologram, shiny on the outside, hollow on the inside. Singapore. It doesn't need neon illusions. Its reality is already more advanced than Japan's fantasy. So after 6 rounds of comparison, what's the final verdict? Simple. Japan is not the future. Japan was the future in 1985. Today, it's a neon-lit nostalgia museum where tourists pay for the illusion of advancement while locals shuffle paperwork through fax machines and eat their dinner out of plastic trays. Singapore, on the other hand, is what Japan pretends to be: sleek, modern, efficient, and actually livable. Japan has anime girls selling you dreams. Singapore has engineers selling you working solutions. Japan has karaoke booths for lonely salarymen. Singapore has co-working spaces for million-dollar startups. Japan's bullet train is still fast, but Singapore's entire country is faster. And let's not forget the big picture. Japan's population is shrinking, its wages are stagnating, and its bureaucracy is allergic to change. Singapore's population is diverse, its wages are rising, and its government updates policies faster than Japan can find the fax machine paper tray. So who's really more advanced in 2025? If you want nostalgia, cosplay, and the world's most expensive convenience store dinner, go to Japan. If you want the actual future, with working tech, global relevance, and a lifestyle that doesn't feel like punishment, pack your bags and head to Singapore. Because the truth is brutal. Japan is the world's favorite cosplay convention. Singapore, it's the business plan everyone else is trying to copy. On-screen final punchline: Japan =, yesterday's dream. Singapore =, tomorrow's reality.